What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JP, back again with another video. And today, that's right, you see it. You see it. I got another hot one for you. I have the Redmi K40 5G. And for those of you that aren't in the know, this is basically the mainland version of the newly announced Poco F3. And by mainland, I'm talking about China. This is this is the Poco F3 anywhere else, except in China, where the well, I don't know if it's so much because the Redmi brand is more prevalent. I'm not really entirely sure why they do that at times, because the Redmi Note 10 series, as many of you know, I had the Note 10 Pro on my channel just a few days ago. That was a global version, even though it's a Redmi. It's a Redmi branded phone, which is another Xiaomi sub brand like Poco. Like I almost said Pogo phone, but it's actually Pogo. But it's the Redmi Note series is sold in other areas like India and like the European market. But the Redmi K40, like last year with the K30, they materialized into, well, just the K30 Pro did anyways. It materialized into the F2 Pro, the Poco F2 Pro elsewhere. And this year, Poco kind of is there's a few different things going on. Redmi introduced the K40, which is the Snapdragon 870 powered model, and then they introduced the K40 Pro, which is the Snapdragon 888. The two phones that Poco recently announced was the Snapdragon 870 powered variant of the K40, the non-Pro K40, just simply called the Poco F3. No Pro. Remember last year they had the F2 Pro and there was no standard F2. Whereas this year you have a standard F3 but not an F3 Pro. They kind of leave that door open, I think, for a Poco variant of the K40 Pro to be called the F3 Pro at some point. And I kind of understand why they didn't do it right then and there and why they may do it later, just to kind of cut the confusion, because Poco introduced an all-new phone, which I'll also be bringing to this channel next week, and that is the same day they announced the F3, they announced the X3 Pro, and I think that was kind of the thought process. They didn't want to get the naming. They didn't want to get all of the names flying around confused. They didn't want to have any kind of confusion between an F3 Pro and an X3 Pro, because the X3 Pro actually sits below the F3 because it has the all-new Snapdragon 860 processor, which again I'll be bringing to the channel next week. It's Poco's first original phone since the Poco phone F1, if I'm not mistaken. There was a Poco X2 that came out around this time last year, and I don't quite remember if that was original or not, but it was a very low-powered device, very budget-minded product. You didn't see a lot of things for it. It wasn't a phone that was you regularly even found imported to get in the U.S. like all the other Poco phones that came out after. Not even just the flagship F2 Pro, but even the X3 NFC was very easy to import. And then at the end of last year, the M3 was very easy to import. But those weren't completely original. And I don't quite remember if the X2 was. A lot of people have forgotten about it. But, it was probably for the better. So we'll just leave it at that. But right here, I have the Redmi K40, a.k.a. the Poco F3, the mainland version. It just sounds better saying that instead of the Chinese version. And this phone is awesome. There's a lot to talk about here. I'm gonna try to squeeze it in. I know I've already rambled. Let's check it out right quick. This has 8 gigs of RAM. Again, this is the 3.2 gigahertz Snapdragon 870. This thing's a monster. I don't even care if it's not the 888. This is still flagship specs for 2021. Flagship specs, again, for 2021. I gotta see how much internal storage I even bought. I don't even know. Okay, yeah, 128 gigs internal. No expandable memory, unfortunately, which is kind of why I like that all-new X3 Pro, because that does have expandable memory. But this phone has ooh, excuse the stuttering there, y'all. I'm trying to get everything out. This phone is, kind of like all of the recent Xiaomi and Redmi phones. They are all following the design cue from the Mi 11. Just like the Redmi Note 10 Pro and even the standard Note 10. The Redmi K40, K40 Pro, they continue that trend. And obviously you are getting more flagship specs here compared to the Redmi Note series. More adjacent, if you will, to the Mi 11, especially the K40 Pro, which matches the processor. And of course, as you know, I've had the Mi 11 on my channel. I think I was one of the first in the U.S., if not the first, to actually feature it, on any YouTube US YouTube channel. I could be wrong about that, and I might be tooting my own horn here, but definitely one of the first. So give me that. As crappy as my videos are, you got to give me that. But I never said my videos were fantastic. But beautiful design. This has Gorilla Glass 6 front and back. It has live wallpapers, as you can see. It came with Mi 11. Look, it's definitely a fingerprint magnet if you couldn't already tell. And it does have the 48 megapixel triple camera setup here. So actually, the Redmi Note 10 Pro, despite a much lower end processor with the Snapdragon 732G, has a much better camera system. But again, the actual camera hardware is only half the story, because a lot of times it has a lot to do with the processor that's running it, because the Snapdragon 732G can't do a lot of things that even the Snapdragon 855, was able to do, let alone, the 860, or the 855 plus even, in between them, which I, should have mentioned before the 860, the 865, the 865 plus, the 870 that this has, the 888 that the Pro model of this has, the Mi 11 has. So it's you can have the top of the line camera lens, but the processors have a lot to do with the image processing and what they can and can't do. And there's a lot of things that the 732G is incompatible with, with the hardware that's in, some of these, specifically the Redmi Note 10 Pro. It has that awesome 108 megapixel third generation Samsung HM2 sensor, but the processor can't even do, a lot of the things that specific lens is designed to do. So, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Processor does play a very important role. And of course, granted, this is the this is the K40, not the K40 Pro or the K40 Pro. I don't remember if they called it the K40 Pro Plus or the K40 Pro Max, but there is a top of the line model that has the Snapdragon 888 and an even better camera system. Of course, the Pro also, beyond the 888, does have a better camera system than what this has, but they went up another notch with one that just kind of completes, it's like the total package, if you will. But the Snapdragon 870 and 860, they just really intrigue me. The 870 games just as hard as the 888. It doesn't have, the overheating issues, but the 888 doesn't overheat like talking about either. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about that. Don't freak out. It is not, it's not another Snapdragon 810 debacle. If y'all remember, several years ago, the Snapdragon 810 had extreme overheating issues, and then Qualcomm did a Snapdragon 810 V2, And at that time, Samsung was putting Exynos processors into the Galaxy S6 lineup that year. They didn't want to deal with the Snapdragon 810. So I don't know if I'm sure a lot of you actually do remember that. But anyways, that's, it's not the issue with the 888. It just overheats more than what people are probably used to, with Qualcomm chips, flagship chipsets the past couple of years. But it's not gonna, it's not to the extreme of the 810, so you don't have to worry about that. But anyways, here we have the K40. Absolutely beautiful display. It has the E4 Samsung produced Super AMOLED display. It's completely flat, no curve. It has the E4, as you know, is compatible with 1500 nits of brightness, and it's really the best screen that money can buy. It's not Quad HD like the Mi 11. It's Full HD Plus, which is fine, which is absolutely fine for the, that's going to help you in battery life. It has 120 hertz refresh rate, and it's just stunning. Face unlock is insanely quick. The fingerprint sensor, it has that ARC fingerprint sensor that we went over with the Redmi Note 10 Pro last week, where it's not an indenture. It's it just kind of looks and feels like a standard power button. That goes along the rest of the design flow of the phone. Hence the ARC, fingerprint sensor, because it is a capacitive fingerprint sensor. And it just doesn't have the sharp edges around it. It's very elegant. It's very incognito. And for those of you that worry that you can't feel it because there's no indenture, it still has your traditional, the feel of a power button. So you can feel it. There's no problem. That case definitely helps because it has the cutout for it. So, the case is going to make it even better if you do have that issue, but I don't really see the issue if you were going to rock this naked. Of course, I love those cases anyways. I love my clear TPU cases because they're very, they're very thin, very minimalistic. They show off. I'm still able to show off the sleek design of the phone. Those are the cases I prefer anyways. I know a lot of people call them cheap cases, but those are the ones I prefer anyways. But, absolutely beautiful phone. Just a fingerprint magnet, of course. And that fingerprint sensor is just insanely fast. It is a 6.67-inch display. And I have a lot of good things to really talk about this phone, too, as far as compatibility. I know a lot of people are going to wonder that. Let me turn this down a little bit here so you can really see it here. And let's see here. Yeah. God, I just bask. I have to pause for a minute just to bask at the pure beauty of this phone. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm hitting in the light just right there where you can't see the fingerprints because, woo, I got a lot on here. But I do keep it in the case. I just have it out of the case for this, for this overview. Now, question, because this is why everyone comes to my channel. Oh, you know what, y'all? I'm skipping around. I was going over what Mi 11 this had, what MIUI version this had, and I just completely went off track into the camera and just forgot about it. This had, out of the box, MIUI 12.02, and now it has MIUI 12.05 or 0.7, actually. You know what? Shoot, while we're just sitting over here trying to guess, let's just look. Because I did get an update. I did get an update yesterday. Okay, yeah, excuse that. There we go, y'all. Yeah, I even, don't mind that, y'all. I changed the device name to Poco F3. I did that. It didn't come like that, but again, it's the same thing. And I'm going to get to why concerning the bands in a minute here. But as you see there, MIUI 12.0.7. So there you go. Now, let's talk about bands. Actually, let's also talk about the ease I actually had of installing the Google apps. As you know, as a mainland version, this doesn't have the Google apps, but it does have GMS built in still. It just doesn't have the Google apps built in. GMS is what your Huawei phones lack, and that's why they're so hard to install Google services on. There are talks that Xiaomi is going to stop including GMS in their Chinese variants, and I hope that doesn't end up being the case. But oddly enough, all the Chinese Xiaomi and Xiaomi sub-brand phones I have had, this phone, like, when the Poco F3 came out, I was a little salty because I didn't get this yet. I got this phone it came in Thursday. And the Poco F3 was announced, I think, on either Tuesday or Wednesday, and I was like, dang. I was like, I would have just waited to get that. Just instead of, getting the K40. I mean, I knew a Poco F3 was coming. I just didn't know it was going to be this early, because last year the Poco F2 Pro didn't come out until May, and the K30 came out, the K30 was done completely different. The K30 and K30 5G were actually lower end phones that came out in late December of 2019. And I got both of them, the 4G and the 5G one, in January of 2020. The K30 Pro was actually the Snapdragon 855 powered, or Snapdragon 865 powered variant. And they had a Pro that upped the camera. And those came out in March this time last year. The Poco F2 Pro, which mirrored the standard K30 Pro, not the K30 Pro Plus with the better camera, but the K30 Pro, didn't come out until like a month and a half later. I remember getting it in May specifically. So that just I didn't, and I got the K30 Pro, and then I ended up getting the Poco F2 Pro. But they released the Poco F3 very close to this, and I felt a little salty. But after getting it, and that's because the K30 Pro last year, I couldn't get 5G for AT&T to work on it, and I couldn't even get LTE on it, which again is a gamble you take with a lot of these phones. I talk about that in a lot of my videos. And I worried about that with the K40. Because see, when I got the Poco F2 Pro, oh man, it had LTE on AT&T and T-Mobile, and I got 5G on AT&T. It was one of the first phones that I was getting 5G, on AT&T with. And not just one of the first Xiaomi phones, but, one of the first phones, period. So I was very excited because we had just gotten 5G in this area back last April 21st to be exact. I remember specifically. So I was excited, but so I did still have the K30 Pro at that time. Yeah, and I didn't even get LTE on it. But so I worried about that. It's a gamble with these because because even the phones that do work, the Chinese variants and even the international variants, they don't even list it. They don't list the band in 5 for 5G AT&T. But this worked. This absolutely worked. This thing got 5G within 2 seconds after I put my SIM card in. And whenever I turned 5G off, it got LTE for AT&T. It was getting band 2 and band 17 for AT&T LTE. It displays band 12 for band 17 sometimes because they're actually one and the same. Band 12 is something that you normally see displayed for T-Mobile phones, but I think because it's an international phone, it'll read both of them. Whereas AT&T phones will kind of show you one and T-Mobile will show you the other one. So you can include band 12 for AT&T, with AT&T compatibility, which is basically 17, and then band 2. Band 5, AT&T, at least in my area, specifically used for 5G now. But it does get 5G. And the ease to install the Google apps on this phone, y'all, was absolutely the easiest Xiaomi phone I have ever had. It's crazy. It's crazy that they're thinking about not keeping GMS built in, at least, in their Chinese phones. But I have not ever had I've never had a Chinese, Xiaomi, phone or sub brand, what have you, where it was this easy to install the Google services. It was super simple. And usually it's not so much that the Google services are hard to install. It's that the contacts don't sync. And you have to do separate things to get the contacts to sync. and your calendar as well. I just don't. I'm not an event planner or nothing like that, so I don't really use the calendar to I don't put a lot of tasks, if you will, into my calendar, into the calendar. So that's not as big of a deal as the contact sync is. And I think the contact sync is a big deal for anybody, especially if you save your contacts, to your Gmail account. And I always seem to get the biggest issue with that more than anything. But this thing was just super simple. And I have all of the band compatibility with AT&T that I remember getting with the Poco F2 Pro that I didn't get with the K30 Pro a month and a half before. Around this time last year. And of course, as time went on, I think the only other Xiaomi device that I tried, which was also a Redmi, that didn't get 5G was the Redmi 10X 5G, which had the MediaTek Dimensity 820. But it wasn't because it was a Dimensity chip, because again, I had the Snapdragon 765G powered Redmi K30 5G January of 2020, over a year ago, that didn't even get LTE in the US. And of course I wouldn't know about 5G. I didn't have it in my area yet. But the X10 5G, I had actually gotten after the Poco F2. And it didn't get it. But then at that same exact time, I remember specifically getting the but the Xiaomi Mi 10 Lite 5G with the Snapdragon 765G. And I was getting 5G. So, like I said, I got all that in my videos from last year. Y'all could check those out. But, and of course I had gotten later on the K30 Ultra with the Dimensity 1000 Plus that got 5G. But man, this phone has just been super simple to get everything running. I got all of my Google apps installed, and it's been great. And the phone has 33 watt fast charge. It's included in the box there. And it is a US plug, I think, isn't it? I think it is. Yeah, it is. Yep, it is. Cool, awesome. I just noticed that actually. So I don't need a converter for it or anything, which I got plenty of those little adapters, anyways. But it is. Is it USB to U? Is it Type C to Type C, or is it Type A to? Okay, no, it's USB Type C to USB Type A. But I was curious because it's red in the middle like OnePlus does. Not the whole, actually OnePlus, the whole cable's red, but the tips inside are red, I noticed. Of course, OnePlus, the tips are red, and the whole cable itself is red. But it's definitely a fingerprint magnet. But like I said, that's what that case right there is for. But I have had, whoo, man, that thing is god gorgeous. Golly, I'm sorry, y'all, I had to pause there for a minute. You know what? I gotta pull the floss. I haven't done it in a few videos, but I gotta smell this thing. Man, hold on. Woo! Y'all, that phone smells like the cheapest. Wait, that didn't sound right. Because you can never make cheapest sound good, even though it's a good thing here. But this phone, the word just hit me. The word just hit me. Y'all, this phone smells like, man, the most beautifully built, ultra powerful, most affordable gaming, non-official gaming device. And it is fantastic. Y'all, whew. Now, would I recommend just getting the Poco F3? Absolutely. Why not? You ain't got to even worry about installing the Google apps. It's already there, even though it's so easy on this phone. The band compatibility is not a question on that phone, which obviously it's not here either. I can tell you it works. You're not gonna, they're not gonna just, they're not gonna, it's either gonna work or it's not. But I have been very impressed with this phone. It's ultra fast. Like I said, 8 gigs of RAM. It does have UFS 3.1 storage. So it's ultra fast, read and write speeds. I do have the X3 Pro coming in next week with the Snapdragon 860. And Yeah, y'all. Again, Gorilla Glass 6. It's not Gorilla Glass Victus, but it's Gorilla Glass 6, which I still didn't see a lot of, last year or this year on phones. I still see a lot of phones with either Gorilla Glass 3 or Gorilla Glass 5 in this price point. So to see Gorilla Glass 6, that's a big deal. I mean, it's not going to be Victus at this price point. Yes, the Mi 11 is Victus, but you're talking about a phone that retails for $700. This phone retails for, heck, 450 I think I paid, and that is actually high because I mean you're talking like a $400 phone, but you pay more to get it here, import and stuff like that, convenience fees, all that is added from the seller because they got to make money too, because they obviously spend a little extra themselves to get it in, even in bulk, I imagine. But amazing phone. I have had a blast with it. Genshin Impact works wonderfully. Dragon Ball Legends, which is another game I play often, it's not really the intense. It was actually at one point a big graphic intense game, but not so much now. But Genshin Impact is definitely the most graphic intense of the graphic intense. In my opinion, more so than Fortnite, Call of Duty, PUBG. If your game if your phone can play Genshin Impact at top settings without overheating, I mean, you got a beast. And of course, the phone's going to overheat some anyways. That's just the nature of the beast. I mean, so I could have just left that part out. I mean, because, your PS5 is going to overheat. Not overheat, but it's going to heat up. That's the proper term. People freak out because they hear the word overheat, but what a lot of people are talking about is the phone just heats up. It doesn't mean it's overheating, like the engine in your car. Just because it's not overheating doesn't mean it's not freaking hot. Open that hood and put your hand on it and watch your skin melt away. I mean, it's not overheating, but you're still, a car's engine on average still gets at idling temperature 220 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm not mistaken. And if someone knows more about cars than me, please correct me in the comments there. Because I am a big car fanatic. I just don't ever put them in my channel. I think I've talked about them very briefly in the past, but anyways, y'all. I hope y'all like this video. I thought I had. Oh yeah, there it goes. Okay, I did have double tap. Let me see how. Woo! God, that face unlock works insanely fast, y'all. Let's try that. Let me see. See, I can't get it on camera properly there, but yeah, it's yep, it's that live wallpaper there. I didn't even go over everything there. There's your speaker, your Type C port, your SIM tray, your power button slash ARC fingerprint sensor, your volume rocker right above it. This is obviously the darker color, the black color. They have a name for it. I just can't think of it here. It's completely naked on the right side of the phone, and there's your top there. And the speakers on this phone sound amazing too, by the way. I think the front-facing camera is either a 16 or a 20 megapixel, but let me see if the color's listed on the box while we're talking about it here. And I'm sure it is, but it's in a foreign language. but yeah, y'all. I know a lot of y'all are going to ask, okay, Justin, last year you got the K30 Pro, and then you ended up getting the F2 Pro, which were virtually the same phone, minus the frequency discussion that, I just went over and spent a lot of time going over, rambling as I always do. But the next question is, is that well, I guess the question hasn't even been asked yet. I'm getting there. Sorry, y'all. With that said, since you have the K40, are you going to do what you did last year and get the Poco F3? And the answer is no. I don't have to. This phone, the whole reason why I wouldn't have gotten the Poco F2 Pro last year if the K30 Pro would have had the proper frequencies, if it would have gotten, 5G, on AT&T and to a lesser degree LTE. Those of you that know me, 5G is actually important to me. That importance has kind of worn off a little bit because it's not really that much faster. I will admit that. I do have the X3 Pro coming in next week, which many of you may know is not a 5G phone. It features the all-new Snapdragon 860, which is a successor to the 855 Plus, but it doesn't include the Snapdragon X55 modem for 5G, nor is there a version of the 860 with the 5G modem. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't do it in the future, because if it's just a higher clock version of the 855 plus, then the modularity for the 5G modem is there, because that was the case with the 855 plus and the 855. The 865 and 865 plus also had that same modularity design. You just couldn't get one without 5G. You couldn't get a 865 or 865 plus powered phone that didn't have the 5G included. But like the 855 and 855 plus, those didn't have 5G built in either, like the 765 and 765G did. See, now this year, as many of you know, the 888 5G is built in, so there's no with or without anyways. It's completely built into the die. And the 870 you can't get without 5G, but I'm not sure if that means that it's built into the die or not, because if it's based on the 865 plus, then I guess that doesn't really mean much, because the 865 plus, it wasn't built in, but you couldn't get it without 5G. But that could have been one of the little changes that they made in the fine print, for the 870, where they took the process of the 888 and made it to where the 5G is completely built into the die for the 870. You don't know. Now, of course, it doesn't make sense, because that is built on the 7 nanometer process of the 865 plus, whereas the 888 features the all new 5 nanometer node. So, I'm not an engineer for Qualcomm, but I'm sure that information's out there as well. But anyways, y'all, sorry for the long video. This is such a fantastic phone, and there was so many things to talk about. But no, I'm not getting the Poco F3, because this is basically the Poco F3 with the Google apps being so easy to install as they were. I've never had a Xiaomi phone where it was easier. And the contact sync just was not, the issues were just non-existent. 5G works on AT&T. LTE works on AT&T. I know LTE works on T-Mobile. It does have band 41 for T-Mobile's mid-band 5G. I don't know about band 66 working on 5G. I know it will for LTE. It doesn't have band 71. Well, correction. It doesn't have band 71 listed, but it doesn't have 66 listed either. But I know 66 is there for LTE, and it may work for 5G as well. Band 71 just always seems to be the big one for both LTE and 5G on T-Mobile as far as low band 5G goes. And band 41, N41, as I've talked about in my last video for the Redmi Note, whatever the last 5G phone was, because the Redmi Note 10 Pro was not 5G, but I actually went over band 41 being listed on all of these foreign phones. And there's plenty of bands that obviously are not listed, because for this to work on 5G AT&T, it requires band N5, which is never listed, and it works on here. And I've had more of these phones where it worked than it didn't. Okay, so, but no, with this, I got the Poco launcher even installed. I don't have it running. You saw pure MIUI running there. Again, 12.0.7. I'm awaiting for I'm eagerly anticipating the 12.5 update, because it is supposed to be a beast of an interface. It's supposed to, again, revolutionize MIUI, which only has gotten better through the years. I mean, it went from being my most hated interface to my most loved interface. Right behind Oxygen OS. I just haven't been crazy about OnePlus's phones lately, but I do love their interface. But I do have the Poco launcher installed from the Play Store. I just haven't actually, put it on the phone yet. The Poco launcher 2.0, and Poco launcher doesn't even differ much from MIUI like it did in the original Poco Phone F1. The original Poco Phone F1, they really did a lot of things to differentiate the two brands with that phone. And even though the X3 Pro is their second, maybe their third original phone, it runs like any other Xiaomi phone. But no, don't need the F3 with the K40. They're the same phone. Especially the way I have it set up, even more so once I actually run the Poco launcher and make it my default launcher. It has all the frequencies there that I had gotten with the F2 Pro that I was so happy about last year. If you watch that video, you'd hear my excitement in the voice. But I am getting the X3 Pro because that price point, that Snapdragon 860. I think the X3 Pro is going to be the breakout device of 2021. Mark my word on that. The X3 Pro is going to be the breakthrough device of 2021 because most people still don't even care about 5G anyways. Let's face it. But I have that coming next week. I also have the ROG Phone 5 coming in. Really quick too, speaking about the ROG Phone 5, it is not a $1,000 phone. I got it for $750, and that's without any kind of discounts or any kind of homeboy discount. I got it from Giztop. It's not like it's not like they give me an astronomical discount over their MSRP that they ask for. I don't know why it's flying around that it's $1,000. The Pro, yes, but everyone keeps saying the ROG Phone 5 is $1,000. No, it is not. It's not. But I'll go over that in the video when I get that in next week as well. But anyways, y'all, hit me up in the comments. Got some smartwatches coming still too. I know I keep saying that, but peace out, y'all.